My name is Chris-Beth Cowie, and I am the founder of Empowered for X, and we exist to help entrepreneurs really simplify innovation as they're building their business. We've worked with individuals who are going from ideation to commercialization, those that have started and really trying to figure out how to get unstuck and move the dial. And through our business consulting and training programs here, individuals have come back and talked to us about the impact, the positive impact that our contractors and professionals and myself have had on their business. This book that I'm working on, I really wanted it to be a map. A map. I love maps. I was sharing earlier this week with someone that at age 16, my family had just moved to Canada a couple years earlier, and my dad wanted to take a trip out to Prince Edward Islands, or PEI, yes. And it was like an adventure we were going on as a family, and I was super excited. At that time, GPS was not a thing. Google Maps was not a thing. So my dad, being a truck driver, had all of these pearly books to across Canada. And I used that book to navigate my family, turning lefts and rights. Oh, we have a fork in the road, we have a decision to make. I mapped out that entire journey from Brampton to PEI, using that book. So I love maps. I look at the map of the world every morning, and I just envision places that I want to go and experience the culture, meet some dynamic people, and really just embrace what the world has to offer from that perspective. And I love acronyms as well, if you don't know that already. One of the acronyms that I created for MAP is motive, action, and prizes. I feel like those three words, so motive, what is your motive for doing anything in life? You have to be able to really consider, why am I doing this? What is the rationale or reason behind it? And sometimes when we check our motives, they may not ultimately be in alignment with our ultimate purpose or passion or goals or with the divine, the ultimate source. And so as a result, if our motives are not in alignment with who we truly are, our authentic selves, it oftentimes leads to, an internal battle that, oh, I don't feel good about this, or you shouldn't do this. And so really checking your motives. Once you've really clarified the motive, why am I going on this journey? Why have you started your entrepreneurial journey? Really leaning into understanding and listening to yourself. It's about taking action. And remember, even sitting down and doing nothing is an action, right? So every moment of our lives, we're making choices that's ultimately, showing up in the way that we live and do the things that we do. And the challenge, I have given myself over the years as I've considered it, I talk a lot, I think a lot, but sometimes I don't do a lot, right? And so really shifting that state of, just talking or thinking about it and not actually doing, realizing that the prize, so that leads it to the P, the reward, right? The prize that you get either is good fruit or bad fruit. And in Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, he talks about, it's like adding, a grain of sand every single day. What will happen? You have this amazing mountain. But if the reverse is also true, if you're just sitting on the couch and you're, just eating and not considering what else could be done, couch potatoes are a real thing, and so challenging yourself to step outside of what would have been that norm or, behavior or habit that you've now ingrained. How do we check our motives, take positive action to move towards a rewarding prize at the end of the day? And I see this in the form of looking at your life holistically. Many of us as entrepreneurs, you hear the words hustle, grind, and what if those were the two only words you knew? I can tell you another word that will come right after is burnout, right? So you don't want to be burnt out. You want to think about your life holistically, looking at, and we talk about it here in terms of the work that we do, looking at the spiritual aspects of who you are, looking at the mental, emotional, phonetical is my word. So fun and epic combined for great or small adventures that are memorable and impactful. And thinking about it, some of us don't know how to have fun by ourselves. Like, what makes you happy? What makes you, have a sense of peace and comfort? And that's the encouragement that we're giving to you as you're navigating through this book. Going into your relationships, one of the things I oftentimes talk about is showing up better, right? When we are well spiritually, mentally, physically, phonetically, we now have the ability to show up better and serve greater in our relationships, the management components of our lives, things that we're responsible for, the professional components of who we are, and also in the philanthropic things that we do as well. So there are 9 core areas of life. As I've reflected on my own journey, these 9 areas are very distinct and so important that we need to lean into to understand who we are in all of these realms and realize that we are one person. Oftentimes you hear the terminology work-life balance. I used to say that a lot. Sometimes I still say it. But the word that comes to me when I'm thinking about balance is harmony. Harmony, right? Finding that, space where you could have, someone reminded me about something Oprah said recently. Oprah says, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once, right? And I'm still challenged by that thought. I'm like, I want it all. But I understand that today, I may be feeding my relationships because that's where the energy needs to flow and the time needs to go. But realizing that if you find that harmony of managing your spiritual, your emotional, your mental, your physical, phonetical, your relational, your managerial, your professional, and your philanthropical needs, all of the, again, you see, I like these things. You realize that you're moving in the right direction. And again, putting it back to what's the motive behind that goal? What are the actions that I'm taking towards that goal? And what will be the results and the prizes that you're looking in that realm? Along my journey, many people see me and it's like, oh, Chris-Beth, you're definitely a go-getter. You move the dial, all of these things. And all is true. I've accomplished, and I'm very grateful for the things that I've accomplished to date. And realizing that, there's within me, the thing that I'm constantly working on is discipline in all areas of my life, right? I realize my comfort zone is a fun place to be, and realizing that sometimes when we don't step out of our comfort zones, that's when we don't grow. And earlier along in my journey, I realized that being comfortable with the norms or with the way things are is not good. And it required me to have a different perspective, new philosophies about how I would look at navigate life, and ultimately leaning into the actions that I would have. I found myself being trapped. I call it mind stuckness. Another word. I like to create words as well. But it's like you find yourself wandering in a place where it's like, oh, you keep thinking about that same thing. What ifs, what ifs, what ifs? And you're kind of held back because of the fears, lies, and insecurities that you may have. And realizing that what you need is, to tap into who you are, what purpose that you're here for. And, some of us, what purpose am I here for? And people get stressed out about that. I like to say, You would only discover your purpose, or one of the main ways that you will discover your purpose is by taking positive action, considering the things that you're doing, get involved, try new things. And when it sticks, when it resonates with you, when that fire burns and says, wow, I can do this, I can see myself doing this. You know, someone made millions selling rocks, right? And they fell in love with rocks, they painted the rocks, and that was their one of their essence or passions or purposes. They wanted to bring joy through rocks. And guess what? It happened. So sometimes it might seem like something silly or something that is not making sense to the rest of the world, but just move in that vein, right? So moving out of the stuckness, moving outside of the mindlessness, I should say, to moving into a mindful place in that way. When we talk about the transition in the book, so you have the map, we find, when I did my own personal reflection, I found myself wearing this loser's cap, right? Of complacency, apathy, and procrastination. But when my life started to progress in a way that, you know, accomplishments were being had, I was feeling better. You know, my fitness was delayed for so long, and realizing that I wanted better for myself, looking at it from the vantage point. Once I started changing my mindset, taking positive actions, I got what I like to call the winner's crown, right? So again, another acronym here for you. So I found myself being competent, the competent character. I was developing myself in that way. Resilience, right? Realizing that when challenges came my way, it was now being able to navigate, think through. You know, one of the sayings that you may hear is like, you can't expect different results doing the same old thing. So you must change. And whenever I met a roadblock, I want to just shout out to some of my mentors out there. You know, thank you so much for the wisdom that you have shared with me to help me think through some of the problems that I was navigating. So resilience come into play. Optimism, right? Being optimistic, and sometimes people's like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to be optimistic. It is a prerequisite for a better outlook on the world, on life, right? If you put yourself in a state of expecting the best is going to come your way. If you're only thinking, oh, this is never going to happen, every bad thing that could happen happens to me. And, you know, bad things happen to everyone, right? So you're not exempt from, you know, good or bad things in that way. But when you position your mind in a way to say, you know what, I am hopeful, I'm grateful, I'm optimistic of something better coming. Oh my goodness, it's gonna come, okay? And guess what? We're not just saying it or thinking it. Remember, actions. We're taking actions ourselves. And what we find is that people say the universe, God just says, listen, I've seen you put in the time, I've seen you put in the effort, I've seen you put in the positive attitude towards, you know, moving in this way. Doors will open. I believe it. I've seen it. Not all doors. I've gotten lots of no's and doors closed. But guess what? The best is yet to come. And I know that for myself. And I believe that. I talk about wealth as the W in C.R.O.W.N. And I'm not just talking about the finance stuff. I talk about the finance, so looking at the financial abundance where people think about wealth oftentimes. But for me, really tying it back holistically to the spiritual, the mental, the physical, the relation, all of the cores of who we are as people, there's wellness. So wealth, talking about the money, but there's also wellness. So I spell wealth as WELLTH, right? So capitalizing the wellness, which is core and important first. And then we could talk about how the abundance shows up in different ways, right? And finances being one of those. And the N in C.R.O.W.N is nourishment. I look at this really as not just for self, but when you are able to lay a foundation and create an environment for yourself to thrive and grow, there's that ripple effect. So looking beyond the here and now to legacy, 5, 4, 10, 15, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what nourishment will you leave to this earth and be able to share with others along the way? And that is what I talk about in terms of moving from the loser's cap to the winner's crown. And so that's what the book is about. My hope is that as I continue to write, I'll be talking about it over the next couple of months, sharing little tips and insights with you. I would be curious to hear your feedback about what has been said thus far about the book, and really give you all a chance to share, what has been your loser's cap, like what has held you back from stepping into the greatest self that you are, right? One of the questions one of my mentors I listened to, Miles Monroe, who's now passed, but he talks about a mango seed is not, the tree is already inside of that mango seed, right? So it's not like the seed is here and the tree is out here. And what that reminds me is that greatness lies within each and every one of us. And what is required is that we take time to really unearth, right? Germinate, nourish the greatness to flourish out of us. And that is the encouragement through this book and through the work that we're doing here at Empowered Facts and BizGrams.